Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Friday's episode of Ask Eman. For everyone watching at home, we're going to be here for the next hour as usual live to take your questions about your life as a Muslim and get them answered for you authentically according to the Quran and Sunnah by our Shaykh today, inshallah. So brothers and sisters, if you tune in regularly, then you know to ask your questions, you give us a call, send us your questions to either our WhatsApp email address, or if you're watching along on YouTube today, then you're able to leave your questions at the comment section, inshallah. So without further ado, I'll be your host for today, and joining us as usual is our special guest, Shaykh Wasim Kempson. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today, Shaykh?
I'm very good, barakallahu feek.
Alhamdulillah. Now, Shaykh, we may have some of our viewers from Birmingham who may have attended the khutbah today in Green Lane Masjid, wondering, we saw Shaykh Wasim today in Birmingham.
Yeah.
How's he back on
In
Eman
London.
channel?
Yeah, because obviously, just so the viewers know, that our studio's in London, South London.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a bit of a, had to get out there quick. They had prepared so many things for me, Jazakumullah khair. Lunch, and I'd already told them don't prepare lunch because I need to leave straight away, but there was a bit of traffic, so I would have been a little bit earlier, but we made the live show, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Shaykh. What was your khutbah about today, Shaykh?
It was about being, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, rasulillah. It was about being optimistic and having good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mentioned things about examples from the Quran, how the Prophets, alayhim salatu wasalam, how they went through great difficulties, but always remained upbeat, always remained optimistic and looking at the good side of things, and how this links in with us understanding a divine decree, qadr, which is part of our iman. And that negativity and feeling like a victim all the time and blaming other people really just gets you down and doesn't get you anywhere. So it's important to be proactive, not reactive. Things like this. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Shaykh. How much, Shaykh, does we speak about this often, about having a good opinion of Allah or thinking well of Allah. How much of a role does it play in actually your affairs going right, or you getting what you want from Allah in terms of your situations or your difficulties? Does it, people or myself, we may think that in the end, if you sin, you have to pay for the consequences of your sins, or if you make dua, the likelihood of your dua being answered is more to do with your level of piety, your closeness to Allah, and so on and so forth. Or sometimes, for example, Shaykh, someone may feel like, oh, I sin so much, how am I even going to be, how is my situation or my affairs even going to be fixed? Does having a good opinion of Allah, how far does it go in overcoming some of these matters? Because it is true, your sins will affect your dua. It's true that if you're far from Allah, it's less likely that your affairs are going to be right. So if you have a good opinion of Allah, Shaykh, is it possible that that opinion alone, if it's very positive, it can kind of take you far, even if if that makes sense?
It does. I see it. It's a good point you're making. So with regards to being optimistic, 100% has an impact on, inshallah, the outcome. If we put into the mix with that, the hadith al-Qudsi in which the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah said, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنَّ عَبْدِي بِي فَلْيَظُنُّ بِي خَيْرًا, that I am as my servant thinks of me, so let him think good of me. So if you find the servant, compared to two Muslims, one Muslim is very optimistic, and that optimism causes them to make more dua, to have more hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, more sincerity in their dua, is more frequent, doing more things, and having a good impact on other people. No doubt that's better than the person who's negative. What's the point? I won't do things. Okay, very common verse that we talk about when we talk about the character of the Prophet ﷺ is in Surah Al-Ahzab. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That you have in the Messenger ﷺ a very great role model. Remember where this verse was revealed. It was during the battle of Ahzab, when the Muslims were in Medina and they were surrounded by the disbelieving tribes. And here the Prophet ﷺ showed a great amount of character, strength, hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which then had an impact on the believers and exposed the munafiqeen. That the hypocrites who were living in Medina at the time, they said, oh, this is Allah and His Messenger have failed His promise to us. No, it's not been fulfilled. Whereas the believers, seeing the Messenger ﷺ relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they in turn they said, no. هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. This is what Allah and His Messenger promised, and Allah and His Messenger have told the truth, and it increased them in their iman. So being positive is something which not only has an impact on you, but impact on the people around you, and inshallah ta'ala can better the outcome because you're relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even more.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Do you mind if we go into it a bit more, Shaykh?
No.
Okay, so I want to ask you then, Shaykh, being positive can only take you so far. What I mean by that is we all have our levels of positivity. Eventually, if things are hard enough, then bit by bit that positivity is going to be broken down, and as a human being you'll end up feeling sometimes a bit down, sometimes a bit hopeless, maybe may even fall into depression when it gets really bad. How then, Shaykh, or I would like to ask, what role then does perseverance play in kind of maintaining this optimism and this kind of opinion of Allah?
So if you can imagine that in our lives there's a constant battle between you being pessimistic and optimistic in any situation. If a person is or persistently and consistently is negative and pessimistic, then that becomes the overriding kind of state of mind and it impacts everything, which then affects the ibadah, the state of mind, the people around them, and it's not a good situation for them. Whereas if a person who is optimistic and they try to, they don't want to hear negativity. So somebody's, oh, we need to raise some money, for example, to build a well, and we need to raise £10,000. Not saying a well costs £10,000, but the whole project or the building of a masjid in an area, we need to raise £10,000 in a month. The person say, well, we don't raise that in Ramadan. We're not going to raise that money, so there's no point doing it. The other person says, no, I don't think like this. I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we are sincere in our goal, in what we want to achieve, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make it happen for us. So the negative person doesn't do anything and they don't achieve. The optimistic person, who is of good mind and having good hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah will open a way for us, they persevere, they go ahead, and even if they don't raise the amount, maybe they raise half of it, £5,000, which at the end they will say, subhanAllah, this was Allah's plan, no doubt, and Allah was testing us whether we were going to strive and struggle or not. So this kind of mindset is something that you will always have. Or you're overriding, or more or less more than most of the time, you're an optimistic person, they achieve more. And a person who is not as optimistic, more pessimistic, more negative, they will achieve less. Okay? So this kind of balance is something we need to pay attention to. And we need to be as optimistic as we can. I don't mean that we have hopes and desires which are impossible. Set things beyond ourselves, and then you'd never achieve that. That can have an impact. So it's important, setting realistic goals, and you prioritize your goals, prioritize the things that you want to achieve, and working like this, and being around positive people, being around people who, as the Prophet commanded us or told us, encouraged us to choose good friends, because you will be upon their deen, upon their religion, upon their way. So have similar kind of minded people. If a person's working in a charity, everybody's working for the same thing. You can't have people who are negative, oh, there's no point doing this. So you're in the wrong job. Certain jobs determine that you need to be of a certain state of mind. You need to be optimistic. You need to be a person who's moving around and challenging and asking and striving and being optimistic. There's no point being in a situation where there's no point doing this. I don't know why we're here. Yeah, I don't know why you're here. Maybe you need to find something else. Allah knows.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Thank you so much. So our first question today from WhatsApp, Shaykh, is Assalamu alaikum. How can I dispose of prayer mats? I've got 4 prayer mats sitting in my car for 5 years, and it's had engine oil and other stuff fallen on them.
Yeah, so if they've already assumed that they don't have the name of Allah on the mats, okay, if they don't have anything like that, then it's not sacred, it's just a piece of material. If they're dirty, you can throw them away. A person shouldn't think, oh, these are prayer mats, and I'm not allowed to throw them away and things like that. It shouldn't have anything from the Quran on it. It shouldn't have the names of Allah on it as well, because you're putting it on the floor. So if it's just those mats, then you could just dispose of them. No problem. Wallahu a'lam.
Shukran. Thank you, Shaykh. Our next question is regarding the 6 days of Shawwal. Shaykh, could you please advise us regarding the 6 days of Shawwal and their benefits?
Yeah, so it's authentically narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts Ramadan and then follows it up with 6 days of Shawwal, it is as though they fasted the whole year. So the Prophet ﷺ, ما ينطق عن الهوى, does not speak from his own desires, rather speaks a revelation that is delivered to him by Allah Jalla wa Ala. So the fact that the Prophet ﷺ recommended that you should fast, not an obligation, but you should fast 6 days of Shawwal after Ramadan, is sufficient in of itself to encourage us to fast 6 days of Ramadan after Ramadan in the month of Shawwal. You should finish the days of Ramadan first, and then you can follow it up with the 6 days in Shawwal, which can be done at any time in the month. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Thank you, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair. That brings us to the end of this part of our show. We're going to take a short break, inshallah. So thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in so far. We're going to be back after a few minutes. Once we are, if you have any questions, you can give us a call on 0203 515 0769. Also, just a reminder that we've moved now to channel 757. So please let your friends and family know. Inshallah, for now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to today's Ask Eman show with Shaykh Wasim Kempson. We're going to be here for another 45 minutes, inshallah, brothers and sisters. So if you have any questions, give us a call on the regular number. That's 0203 515 0769. And with that, we're going to go to our next caller of the show. Assalamu alaikum to our caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question for us today?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have a question. My sister-in-law doesn't want me to have any relationship with my brother and my niece and nephew. And I know it's a major sin to break ties. So in this case, what should I do?
Is there any reason? Was there any reason given? Why?
Shaykh wants to know, is there a reason given?
Yeah, she doesn't like. She thinks I am, involving, and looking after the children. So she thinks, it's like she doesn't want me to speak to the children. She thinks maybe I am taking her children away from her by, looking after, going and seeing.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Inshallah, if you have any more questions, give us a call back. Jazakallah khair.
طيب, Bismillah. The reason I asked, does she mention a reason? Not that somebody can justify a reason to say, okay, you're allowed to cut ties. I just wanted to know, is there a reasoning that you can speak to her upon, a starting point as to informing her that it's not allowed for her to try to come between a brother and a sister? It's haram. To say that you cannot speak to her, you shouldn't have any company of your own brother, هذا ما يجوز. It's not allowed. And similarly, the brother should stand up and make it clear that this is my sister and my children, and if we want to go and see our sister, then that should be the case. And everything has a fine balance. Nobody within the family structure should push themselves on others, demanding to be in somebody's house at a particular time, because it's important that everybody has their own privacy and their own space, because of course, as I said, there's a balance to everything. If a person feels overwhelmed about somebody always being in the home and always being within their private space, then they can speak to them in a nice way. You can arrange it in a certain way that this doesn't happen and you don't feel so overwhelmed by that situation. But just to say, right, that's it, you can't have contact with any, we will not have contact with your nieces and your nephews, then this is, Islam prohibits this. But if there are underlying reasons, you need to speak with her and explain to her that, of course, cutting ties is not permissible, but if she has any concerns, you're willing to listen to the concerns, that you can resolve them in the correct way. Naam, wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair. Our next question is from WhatsApp, and the question is, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If someone tries to walk in front of you whilst you are praying, knowing or unknowingly, can you hold up your hand to stop them or gently push them?
Yeah. So if you... we know that the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from walking people in front of people while they're praying. It's not allowed for us to do that. The distance of that is, as many of the ulama, is that the distance it would, for example, you were to go in, if you were standing in salah and you are down into sujood. That's the distance you're allowed. If somebody walks beyond that, then you can leave them. If you placed a sutra there, an item there in front of you, identifying that this is the space that you need to pray, then a person should respect that and walk around it. That's not a problem. If you've not placed anything, okay, then maybe that person is it needs to get past, but doesn't know the distance. But maybe, is walking beyond that distance of where you make sujood, and so you unnecessarily start putting your hand out. There's no need for you to do that. But if a person literally is right in front of you, you have the right to put your hand to stop them. You have the right to do that. No.
And how? This just I recall, Shaykh. It's happened to me a few times, and I think it's happened to everyone. You mistakenly walk in front of someone. You can't, especially after salah. Sometimes you don't know who's praying, who's not. There have been times, Shaykh, where people have quite aggressively put their hand out and pushed me out of the way.
Yeah.
So just so we know what to do as well, because I wouldn't be comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
But is that an instruction from the Prophet ﷺ? Are we meant to be aggressive about it, or how? What's the limit?
Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ told us that if a
By
person,
aggressive, I mean strongly.
So if a person insists, that the person, describe the person as a shaitan for you to do what is necessary to stop them. If the person is persistent. But if it is after salah, in your mind, you should be aware that after salah, maybe some people praying sunnah prayers, some people are not. Sometimes the people are praying. Or it's difficult for a person to know exactly and pay attention to every single individual, and that a person may mistakenly walk past. So there's no need for you to be so harsh and so rough that you hurt them, because maybe they make a mistake in understanding that or realizing that you're praying. It can happen. If the person is insistent on that, then it's allowed for you to be a little bit more forceful. Okay, but not the first time.
Understood, Shaykh. That makes sense now. Thank you, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair. Our next question, Shaykh, is Assalamu alaikum. Am I allowed to combine and shorten prayers when I return home from a journey?
Yeah, so if you return home, then you're a resident now. You're not allowed to shorten them because you're a resident now. But if you hadn't prayed on that journey and you arrive home, then of course you've got those two prayers remaining. Let's say it's Maghrib and Isha. Then you simply pray your Maghrib 3 and your Isha 4. Naam. Wallahu alam.
Thank you, Shaykh. Our next question, Shaykh, is Assalamu alaikum. Question is, if someone has made any sins but has forgotten them, how can he wipe his slate free from those sins?
So the Prophet ﷺ said in a sound hadith, "At-ta'ibu kaman la dhanba lahu," that the repentant one is like the one who has no sin. So when you repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla for forgiveness, then with regards to your major sins, then you try to be as specific as you can, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you for the major sins that you have committed. It means you're in touch with your mistakes, okay? And not taking things for granted by just saying, lip service by saying astaghfirullah, 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 and really not thinking about or have any regret for what you did. So from time to time, and as often as you can, you think about the things that you have done wrong and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you. If there are things that you have forgotten, then you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you for the things that you cannot remember. Okay? And as we know, Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all sin. As long as you remain sincere and repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, then we hope that Allah will forgive us of our sins.
Thank you, Shaykh. So when it comes to making istighfar or asking forgiveness, Shaykh, what's the difference between making istighfar and seeking tawbah?
Okay, so with regards to these two words, we want to literally translate them into the language that we speak in English. Istighfar is to ask and to seek forgiveness. And tawbah is usually translated as to repent. In the Arabic, istighfar, when you say talabul maghfirah, is the requesting of Allah's forgiveness. And tawbah, from the word taba yatubu, it means awda, means to return, to go back. Now whenever you find these terms in the Quran, and they're mentioned alone, that they encompass both. So when the word tawbah is mentioned, but in the same ayah or the same sentence as it were, tawbah means istighfar. You're seeking that you are returning to Allah, seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. However, if they are mentioned together, and there are times when you find the word tawbah and istighfar are mentioned in the same ayah or the same place, this means that they were going to have their own individual meaning now. Okay? So if they're mentioned like Islam and Eman, if you find them Islam is mentioned on its own, then it encompasses Eman. And if Eman is mentioned on its own, it encompasses Islam. But if they're mentioned together, they will have their own individual meanings. Similarly, with tawbah and istighfar, if they're mentioned separately, then it will encompass the other. If they're mentioned together, they will have their own individual meaning. And the scholars have mentioned the differences between the two. And that is one of the interpretations, is istighfar is the things that happen in the past, that what happened in the past. And then when you return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you're talking about that what happens in the future, that you return to Allah Azza wa Jalla, you remain on what is correct for the foreseeable future. Okay, so you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness in the past, and the tawbah is to return to Allah Azza wa Jalla, to return to obedience, that you remain on the correct path for the foreseeable future. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, thank you, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair. With that, we're going to go to our next caller of the show. Assalamu alaikum to our caller. Welcome to the show. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So welcome to the show. What's your question for us today?
I just want to know that I have asked quite a few people because I'm diabetic, and whenever I pray, and if I need to check my blood sugar, I check it, and some of them they have said that it breaks the wudu, and some of them they have said that it does not break the wudu. So I just want to know that checking your blood sugar, does it break the wudu or not? And I mean, when we check the blood sugar, it's only like tiny drop comes out from my finger, and it does not flow or anything. So could you please just throw some light in my question?
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. We have 40 seconds until our break, Shaykh.
So, Sister Barakallahu Fiki, with a little machine that you use, just a little pin pricks your finger, and then you put it on the paper, and it tells you your blood sugar. This does not nullify, does not break your wudu, inshallah ta'ala. So after you've done that, you've got wudu, you pray as normal, inshallah, without the need to make wudu. Allah knows best.
Thank you, Shaykh. That brings us to the end of this part of our show. We're going to take a short break for a few minutes, and then we'll be back to continue for the next part of our show. So when we're back, if you have any questions, brothers and sisters, be sure to call us or send us your questions at either WhatsApp or YouTube or email, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to today's Ask Eman show. We're going to be here for another 30 minutes, inshallah. So if you have any questions, give us a call or send us your questions to our WhatsApp, email, or YouTube, inshallah. So, Shaykh, our next question is from YouTube, and the question is, I have 10 fasts to make up for. Do I have to make up for these first before I intend to fast Shawwal? And are there any du'as I can make for a successful job application or successful job applications?
He wants to know du'a?
Yes, if there is a du'a for that.
So, with regards to Shawwal, the vast majority of the ulama of the view that you should really finish Ramadan first, the days that haven't been fasted. You fast those days first, and then you can start off Shawwal. The vast majority of the ulama of that view. Allah knows best.
Thank you, Shaykh.
If you're seeking success in a job application, I don't know. But the fact I don't know doesn't mean that you can't make dua. You can make dua in your own language. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you, as we do every day, that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the best in that what is in this day and that what comes after this day. and you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the evil that occurs in this day and that what occurs after it. So these are the adhkar we make every morning and the evening. And if you have made job applications, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you success and that what is best for you. You make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to give you the best. Now, if it means you do it in your own language, then that's fine, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Shaykh. Our next question is from YouTube, and the question is: Assalamu alaikum. Can sisters prostrate? I think it's not. I think it's an incomplete question. So you can ask for that question to be sent again, and then we can put it forward. The question asked that Shaykh is: my parents don't talk to my sister anymore, as she left the fold of Islam and married someone outside of the religion. My parents don't want me to stay in touch with her. Should I listen to them, or should I stay in touch with her?
So yeah, obviously this is a very sensitive issue where parents can feel very strong about how their children have behaved or are behaving. And something as in terms of from an Islamic point of view, if somebody takes a path other than Islam, parents can take that quite hard and may not want any contact with that particular son or daughter, which to some may seem quite a strong position to take, because I mean at the end of the day it's your child, but we don't know what has happened between these people. We don't know. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala join their hearts upon that what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are times when, in general I'm talking about now, that by kind of shunning a person, staying away from a person, will cause them to maybe rethink their position. Because if they've done something wrong and you want to teach them that they've done something, or for them to be aware that they've done something wrong, shunning them can be a way of doing that. To ignore them, so listen, we don't want to, while you're doing that, we don't want any contact with you. Maybe that person will rethink their position. There are other times when shunning them and avoiding them doesn't help them. They just become more deep-rooted in what they're doing. So really it's better for you to kind of judge that situation. I understand that people can take another path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide everybody. Guidance is ultimately from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we make dua for our family members to remain steadfast upon the deen. Not everyone will remain on that. We know that the Nuh alayhi salam had one of his sons who turned away and was destroyed. Some family members of Lut alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent angels to destroy a nation because of their disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some of his family members, his wife. So it's not a guarantee and it's not in our hands. So what I would say is that maybe it's for the sister to speak to her parents, and that try to explain that shunning people sometimes can have benefits, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe at one point, if you do happen to speak to her and you take a different kind of way of dealing with her, maybe she can rethink about some of the actions that she's doing, and who knows, maybe the situation can improve in the future. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair. Our next question is: Assalamu alaikum. I know a brother whose wife passed away today. Rahmahullah. The husband cannot afford to pay for the funeral expenses. Can he receive zakat for this?
طيب. So concerning if a person passes away, and that individual, because if a person passes away, first and foremost, the burial comes from their wealth, not anybody else. Their own wealth. If they don't have the wealth, then those who have responsibility for them, that person, it goes on to them. If they don't have enough, then it's a must for the Muslim community as a whole to make sure that person is buried, not for zakah. But because they may not qualify for zakah, and they may qualify for zakah for other reasons because of poverty, but this is a situation where it goes back to the Muslim community if the individuals don't have enough. So this information needs to be, if they don't have the means of burying her, to pay for it, then the Muslim community needs to be informed, so that the Muslims, they come together to ensure that she has the right. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon the sister. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow the brother to have patience and to make it easy for him. Wallahu a'lam. Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you, Shaykh. Our next question, Shaykh, is going to be from our YouTube questions. And the question is, Assalamu alaikum. I would like, can a sister prostrate while on her monthly cycle whenever she's reciting or listening to the Quran? Is that possible to do?
Okay. So, based upon the view that a woman who's on a monthly cycle, that she's allowed to recite the Quran, which it seems to be the stronger view, wallahu alam, although there's a legitimate difference of opinion. It's the opinion of Imam Malik rahimahullah, there is no evidence, clear evidence to state that she cannot. If at this time, because the prostration is not considered salah, it's not considered to be prayer, it would be permitted for her to make that sujood while reciting on the Quran if she's on a monthly cycle, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Our next question is, I would like to know if egg donation IVA is allowed in Islam.
Egg? IVA? IVF?
IVF.
طيب, okay, yes, right. So with this artificial means of people getting pregnant, then the condition, the ulama have mentioned certain conditions. If a family, a husband and wife, are able to, without artificial kind of interference, then they're not permitted to go to IVF. I just heard the fatwa, I read it, I listened to it yesterday, subhanAllah. If, however, there are problems, there are issues that they're unable to naturally, and this is by trusted doctors, they're unable to naturally have children, but there are other means like IVF treatment, then it is permitted with certain conditions that the sperm of the husband and the egg of the wife, only these two are allowed. You can't have a third party donating an egg, or you donating your one sperm or egg to other people. هذا لا يجوز. It's haram, it's not allowed. So it is only between the two spouses that it is allowed to use the egg and the sperm from them two with trusted doctors to try and have a baby. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is best.
Thank you, Shaykh. We're going to go to our next caller now. Assalamu alaikum to our caller. Welcome to the show. What's your name and where are you calling from? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Sayyid calling from Manchester. Time, Brother Sayyid. Welcome to the show. What's your question for us today?
Yes, my question to Shaykh is that yet can you throw some light on considerations? What sort of things should not be demonstrated at a Muslim's engagement ceremony? And within the question, the second is, what sort of best message one can convey at such a ceremony to the couple? I mean,
did you hear the second part, Shaykh? The second part of your question, Brother Saeed?
Yes, what sort of message, Islamic message, we can convey to the proposed couple?
Convey. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Jazakallah
you.
khair. Okay, Shaykh. Yes.
So if a person, a walima, we're talking about walima, when people get married,
yes.
what's not allowed?
Yes.
And there could be a million and one things that are not allowed. You know, I mean, it's, I guess you need to be a bit more specific as to, there are certain Islamic principles that we have. Try to, the open, free gender mixing and so on, and music and dancing and in front of the genders and things, of course, is not allowed. But it's something people frequently do. And the message is, as the Prophet said, may Allah Azza wa Jal bless you both, place blessings between you, and bring you together on all that is good. This is the central message when two spouses, they come together, seeking the pleasure and the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any marriage. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is best.
And you shared the message, right, Shaykh, as well. What message should be shared with or conveyed to
that's the message that is conveyed to people, that it is there's a very important joining of two people, and that it should be upon the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And it is a very important pillar or part of the community, and this is something which should be valued and not be taken lightly. And it really depends who's, if somebody's conducting a marriage, that you should mention these things. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Thank you. We're going to take our next break now and our final break, inshallah. And then we'll be back for the last part of our show for another 10 to 15 minutes. Inshallah, stay tuned And once we're back, you're able to send us your questions or give us a call, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to today's Ask Eman show for the final part of today's show. If you have any questions, give us a call on the usual number 0203 515 0769. We've also moved our channel number to 757, so please let your friends and family know that. If you're watching along on YouTube and you sometimes watch on TV as well, then please note that as well. We're on Sky 757 now, inshallah. If you'd like to send us your questions on WhatsApp, email or YouTube, then you'll find the details coming and going at the bottom left side of your screen, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Welcome back after the show, after the break. So Shaykh, our next question is about, is two parts, and they're both to do with social media. So part one, Shaykh, how should a Muslim conduct themselves when it comes to sharing their personal life on social media, in terms of both the dangers of it, well, mainly the dangers of it, and secondly, when it comes to social media, Shaykh, you know, you come across all types of news. Yeah. And sometimes the consequences of being out on social media and having your personal life on social media makes you susceptible to also, being spoken about amongst people, people kind of speaking about your life and so on. How can someone protect themselves? And secondly, what advice, Shaykh, is there for the people that collect news and share it about, especially bad news?
طيب. So regarding social media, we are still going through, and I've mentioned this before, and the example, the analogy that I give is medicine. Medicine, before it comes onto the market and is readily available for people to use, it goes through a number of years of trialing and testing to make sure it doesn't cause any long-term harm to people. I mean, of course, there are things that certain medicines that it is discovered later on, but at least there are trials and some research that happens before something comes onto the market that it doesn't harm people. Social media, before it comes into, because it is a relatively new phenomena, some of them didn't exist just over 10 years ago, 11 years ago they started, some of them. Or even if they started before that, then it was on a very basic level that it wouldn't have the impact that it does have now. It is something that has come into the public domain around the world. And as human beings, how does that affect us? It's not gone through any trialing. It's not gone through any. There is research going on it as to how does it impact the human mind, and it's very fertile land, if you like, in terms of the amount of studies that you can do with social media. How does it impact people? How does it change the way they think or they understand the world? How does it affect the nafs, the individual? Now, if you go into that domain, if you go into that world of social media, which has its own kind of existence, it's different when you and I sitting here, we can talk, and if you go to a masjid or you go to a public space like a mall and things like that, it's very limited to what you are exposing yourself to. 100%. However, if you get into that social media arena, then from what I've seen, the overwhelming percentage of people, vast majority of people, if they find a story or they see something which is remotely controversial, maybe it's not that controversial, maybe it's a little bit controversial, then you will see people pull out the daggers, and people will have addressed that situation without finding out if it's true. Basically no Islamic principles are applied at all.
The rules are very different.
No Islamic principles are guiding any Muslims. I'm talking about non-Muslims. They have their own ways of looking at things. As Muslims, the vast majority of Muslims do not use social media with Islamic guidelines. This is a very large topic, very big topic, and it impacts people in so many different ways. And how that's going to affect people 5 years down the line, because maybe you've got children, okay, and you put yourself in the limelight, and you've got children. In 10 years, how does that affect your children? When you have become what you have become and what people say about you, whether it's true or not, but how does that impact your children? You don't know. So I think that from a starting point, we should always be cautious, especially when we're dealing with the ego, the nafs, the self, because you can become sometimes in a little bubble. I may be in my own room and I'm doing videos, and millions of people are seeing it, or hundreds of thousands of people are seeing it. But there is a detachment from that, because all I'm doing it in front of a little screen, and I don't feel that. If it's different if you're standing on a stage and you start telling people about your life live in front of people. I read, if I've got a bit of time.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me an article actually, and somebody said, I've decided to have a different approach instead of using this social media. I've decided I'm going to do it with real people. So I'm going to walk down the street, I'm going to speak to people, and I'm going to tell them what I had to eat this morning. Just strangers in the street. I'm going to approach them, I'm going to tell them when I was born, what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to pull up pictures and say, this is who I am, okay? And this is my new approach. I'm going to do it with real people. He said, I've already got 4 followers. He said, I've got 2 police following me. I've got social services following me. And I've got a psychiatric doctor following me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So if you put it in the real realm,
It doesn't
it's
work.
like, this is madness what you're doing.
It is.
But somehow, because it's in this, well, I can't think of the word. It's artificial. This it's not the other word I'm thinking of this online manufactured world.
Yeah.
That somehow it's okay. That they're changing the reality of the way things are in your mind.
Alternate reality is that.
Yeah, they may be like this, but
Something like
it's
that, yeah.
there's a word that's not coming to me. But anyway, the message is clear what I'm saying to you.
Matrix, I'm joking.
Yeah, but it's like they've lost contact with reality, and they're doing things which remove their bashfulness, their shyness. It removes so many things which Islam asks you to be, and all of that is removed. Protect your nafs, protect your in terms of fame. Don't seek fame. Don't seek to be famous. Don't seek to have likes. For the sake of what? For the sake of adverts, so you can make money? Or what is your intention, really? So it is, social media, I think, for the vast majority of people is, in terms of sins and behavior, is a graveyard for them. It is a maqbara for them. It is their death. It is the death of their soul. It is the death of so many Islamic principles that people should uphold. But they become numb. And they've become immune, or somehow don't understand, and reality has changed their mind. When you start talking about Islamic principles, it is alien to them. That no, you have to be inclusive. You can be what you like, and you can do what you like, and you can't question anybody. If you mention things in the Quran to do with behavior, interaction with the genders, if you start talking about what are considered to be sins, imagine now, okay, there's a group on a particular social media. We want a group. We're going to go to the pub every Friday night, Muslims. You would be, excuse me, alcohol is a sin. It's like, no, you don't know what we're talking about. We live in a country where you can do what you like, and this is what this is what I am. This is what I want to be. I want to say alcohol is halal. Who are you to tell me otherwise? Once you say something to people enough times, people start to believe the lies. People start thinking, you know what, maybe it's true. Maybe it's true. All these sins in the Quran, the shaitan yuzayyinu a'maluhum, beautifies their actions, beautifies their statements, to the extent where people believe the lies. And then there's so much confusion. I mean, I'm not sure if I've touched on your question so much, because it's such a vast thing. But what I would say is that really, being careful on social media is an understatement. And how that impacts you, and because you leave a thumbprint which can't be removed, because all the pictures and the videos, they go everywhere, and you'll never be safe from the tongues of people. So for a lot of people, to be honest with them, as much that you can find benefit on that, to be honest with you, to save yourself, to stay away from it, is probably a good solution for you. Wallahu a'lam.
That's true, Shaykh. It's true, Shaykh. Like from what you said, there's people, their behavior, exactly like you said, for example, especially when it comes to the bad behavior of slander and backbiting, what people would say in comments to others on their pages or something, they would never come to their face and say it in real life. But they say very publicly. It's a sad situation. Like you said, it's a world that plays by different rules completely. It's a different way, and people don't abide by Islamic rules. No, there's no Islamic guidance that people have when entering this world. It's like you can just leave that outside because it's artificial, it's not real. I can behave as I like, as though that there's no repercussions for that, there's no consequences for that. But you should realize 100% there are consequences for that. And that you'll be questioned about what you wrote, what you shared, what you liked, what you commented about. All of that will come back to you. But for some reason, people have become, when the Prophet ﷺ said that when the Dajjal will come, people will rush to him because they won't believe it's the Dajjal. What are you talking about? They've belittled its reality, that people will flock to him. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and keep us safe from these great fitan.
I mean, Shaykh, thank you. It was a good topic, I think, to cover.
Yeah,
we should cover it more. It's the 21st century.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Shaykh, for joining us today. May Allah reward you.
Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in today. We're going to be back, inshallah, soon. For now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.